As the country marks 30 years since the first democratic elections, the World Movement for Democracy will host an event at the Nelson Mandela Foundation in Houghton, Johannesburg. Now, some of the speakers expected to take part include 2021 Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Ressa from the Philippines, renowned activist Dr Mamphela Ramphele, as well as many others. SABC News' Khayelihle Khumalo, in fact, joins us now live for more. Kaya, good afternoon. Lots of themes to explore: political, economic, cultural, social. Talk to us about what's happening on your end. What also can we expect ahead of the event?
Well, without a shadow of a doubt, Lisa, it's a plethora of topics, really, as you know, that South Africa has embarked on this democratic journey. Obviously, quite a number of challenges along the way. So that's exactly what the participants will be looking at. But of course, we know that South Africa would have not been here without the global solidarity, the anti-apartheid movement that really galvanized the support, working with so many freedom fighters. But let's hear from one of the participants here, because obviously quite a number of luminaries are here. So thank you so much indeed, Mr. Wilson, all the way from the US. So by all means, quite a very important session. 30 years of democracy for South Africa. I mean, what do you make of this journey, first of all, for South Africa?
Okay, first of all, thank you for having us here. It's an incredible honor to be here at the Nelson Mandela Foundation with incredible activists from around the world in solidarity with South Africa. Many of us who have been inspired by the South African journey, who are not naive about the challenges, but really coming back to South Africa as part of the celebration of 30 years to find inspiration at a time where democracy is under attack globally, and we need new ideas, we need to learn from each other, and we need some of that inspiration from our South African brothers and sisters.
And obviously quite a number of speakers that you have, from the Nobel Peace Laureate, Miss Maria, all the way from the Philippines, our very own champions of democracy, Dr. Mamphela. What can you expect? I mean, obviously, like you say, that globally democracy is under siege, with, this wave of disinformation as well. I mean, what can we expect in terms of solutions today?
Look, these two women are icons of the struggle and the fight for democracy in South Africa and the Philippines. I've been honored to be here with the World Movement for Democracy, which Maria Ressa chairs, and to be here in the foundation, the home of Nobel Peace Prize winner Nelson Mandela, with a current Nobel Peace Prize winner, Maria Ressa. She has fought a dictator in the Philippines. She has fought technology undermining democracy. And that's really what this is about, not just acknowledging the problems and challenges that all democracies are facing. As American, I know that, but really working with incredible visionaries and practitioners like Maria, who are mapping pathways forward. And that's what the World Movement is about. At a time when democracy is under attack, how do we come together, learn from each other, and develop solutions to revitalize the democratic experience for our peoples?
Before I let you go, Damon, obviously commonalities for South Africa and the US. You're going to the elections. I mean, it's quite a very heated moment, so much is happening. What can these two democracies learn from each other in terms of making sure that the true will of the people gets reflected in these elections?
Well, I think we've both, just from talking to many South Africans here and as an American, we both learned, man, we cannot take this for granted. We can't take our democracy for granted. And what I've been inspired by is watching the activation of South African civil society, the vibrancy of the media, the political competition here. People are fighting for what they're dissatisfied with. That's what's happening in the United States too, understanding we've got challenges. This is not a linear process. Democracy is something you have to fight for, and I think we're in it together in that sense.
All right, Damon, thank you so much indeed. So, Liesl, that's one of the speakers. I mean, I want to see if we can try and get Maria really to get a sense from her in terms of what can we expect. I mean, she's quite a very formidable person, quite a very extraordinary journalist, really, who has been hoisting the flag of journalism, sometimes under very precarious circumstances. Thank you so much indeed, Maria, and welcome to South Africa. Maybe first and foremost, I mean, today, what can we expect from you?
Today I am thrilled to be on stage with two incredible women. In fact, we need to have a male moderator just to make sure it's balanced.
I'm available.
I know, right? Look, I think this begins the work. I've had 2 days here, been so warmly welcomed, but I was just looking at what this phrase, Nelson Mandela is dead, this is up to you. What can we expect? A message that we've been saying from the Philippines after we discovered how we are quickly losing agency with the tech that we are using. And this is that democracy today is a person-to-person defense of these values we hold dear. And that begins with news, with journalists, with civil society, with lawyers. It's a whole of society approach. That's what we hope will come out of this.
Maria, this comes at a very critical time, with the geopolitical tension. I mean, look what's happening in Gaza and how we've seen this polarization where you have those who are saying, well, Israel has a right to defend itself, but then you have those who are saying, what about the civilians who are dying in numbers every day, the horrific images. So what does that mean in terms of the context where you're having these moments?
I think the world is looking at whether rule of law actually works all around the world, right? I come from the global south. When South Africa brought Israel to the ICJ, it was a move that seemed long overdue, given the fact that almost 30,000 people have been killed in Gaza. That doesn't take away from the suffering of Israel, nor does it take away from all of the 100 years of conflict in the Middle East. But today we are watching in real time, and we have to go back to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
A critical time for South Africa as well, going to the election. So many countries really just going through the elections. But I suppose what is always a fundamental question is, are the outcomes really reflecting the true will of the people? And what can we learn? I mean, obviously, with you've worked so hard in fighting against fake news, disinformation. So a very important lesson to pick up there.
And actually, more than that, it's disinformation, information operations, information warfare, which is using social media, using big tech. Systems that were used for advertising and marketing have now been used to insidiously manipulate people. When lies spread at least six times faster than facts, journalists are handcuffed. When you seed a message with fear, anger, and hate, you polarize society. So it is, not a surprise that as of last year, this is VDEM, they said that 72% of the world today is under authoritarian rule. That goes hand in hand. So the big question today is, with the tech that connects us, do we still have agency? You add that's a galvanizing shift to all of the problems of every democracy around the world, because the real world problems haven't changed. They've been exacerbated by this. So here's the problem with 2024. More than half of the world is going to be voting this year, but more than half of the world is on these social media platforms. So will we have agency? This is, in the Nobel lecture in 2021, I said that 2024 is a tipping point year. This is the time to go out and fight for your values, regardless of what other events are, or what other conflicts are there. Will democracy survive? This is up to each of us.
And just before I let you go, Maria, democratic backsliding, I mean, right in the African continent, I mean, this is a continent where at times journalists get jailed, where also at times you see the civic space really shrinking because of some of the laws introduced by the governments. With your story in the Philippines, I mean, you fought a very incredible battle against President Rodrigo Duterte, against so many campaigns that he had. How did you keep it all together? And any lessons for the journalist in sub-Saharan Africa in really just getting some very wise pearls from you?
The phrase I used all the time is hold the line. This is the line of our rights guaranteed by the Constitution. And at this point in time, it almost seemed like there was a bulldozer trying to push us back from the line. The first line of defense are the facts, is journalism. So it isn't a coincidence that over the last decade, you have seen more journalists harassed, jailed, killed, right? That goes hand in hand with the decline of democracy all around the world over the last 17 years. But I'll say this one last thing, right? We're under attack not just by governments, people who don't want the truth, but we're also under attack by the demise of our business model, right? And this is something that tech helped push forward. So this is a moment. It's like the Oppenheimer moment. In the Nobel lecture, I said again, this is like an atom bomb exploded in our information ecosystem. Well, so the destruction has happened. The question is, what are we going to do about it? And I think for South Africa and South African journalists. This is a moment where our jobs are even more important than ever, because where South Africa goes, Africa goes.
All right, Maria Ressa, of course, a Nobel Peace Laureate in 2021. She's right here in South Africa in quite a very important moment for the country and also for the Nelson Mandela Foundation. As you know, that this is where they host all the most thought-provoking topics, really just making sure that democracy is well shaped. So with that, back to you, Liesl.
Thank you, Kaya, for that update. We'll continue to monitor developments as that dialogue gets underway.